morning sun where the flowers bloom, colors burst like a painter's dream come true. Roses red and violets blue, every petal whispers something new. From tiny seeds to trees so grand, every leaf and bird, it's all at hand. Hello, hello plant, welcome to the show, where every flower tells a story. Watch them grow. Hello, hello plant, in every shade and hue, for every heart and every hand, we've got something for you. Indoor greens and outdoor scenes, design your space, let your garden dreams glide. Personal touch with our garden design, free sessions to blend within your budget line. From tiny seeds to trees so grand, every leaf and bird, it's all at hand. Hello, hello plant, welcome to the show, where every flower tells a story. Watch them grow. Hello, hello plant, in every shade and hue, for every heart and every hand, we've got something for you. Now everybody, let's say hello, 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 hello. Hello, hello plant, welcome to the show, where every flower tells a story. Watch them grow. Hello, hello plant, in every shade and hue, for every heart and every hand, we've got something for you, just for you. In the morning sun where the flowers bloom, colors burst like a painter's dream come true.
Hi everyone, and welcome to our live All About Tomatoes. We're going to teach you everything about how to grow tomatoes, about different types of tomatoes, so you know which one is the right variety for you. It's all very exciting, and on your, maybe if you've been growing food for a while, this could be your next step, or if you've never grown food before, this could be that very first step. It's very easy, it's quite a good beginner plant. And yeah, so I'm quite excited. How are you doing today, Chris?
Great, thanks.
Amazing. All right, well, if you have any questions that come up along the way, please comment them. We're going to dedicate some time at the end to answer them. So just stick around and we will answer your questions then. But let's get right into it. We've got quite a fully packed tomato schedule.
Yeah, now, tomatoes are actually Australia's most popular fruit stroke vegetable. So the tomatoes are actually the fruit that grows on a vegetable plant, and they are the number one most popular, and they're the
Just a second, Chris, we're just having some audio issues. Would that be this mic?
Is his mic on? Is one of them?
Should be. Yeah, it's on. If you can let us know, can you hear us all right? You could please comment and just say if the audio is working all right. Unless we want to...
Says audio is good. Okay, we're good.
Okay,
Okay,
so
cool.
tomatoes are the most popular fruit stroke vegetable, and they're the most popular homegrown fruit stroke vegetable. So a lot of people will grow a tomato who won't bother to grow any other sort of fruit or vegetable. And let's discuss what the advantages of homegrown tomatoes are. I'm often amazed at the price. Like if you want a really nice tomato in the shop, I'm amazed at the price that you pay for good tomatoes. There's always some cheap ones in there, but a really nice tomato could be really quite expensive at certain times of the year. And so growing your own tomatoes could help price-wise, but there's a lot of other reasons. First of all, a homegrown tomato grown with the right sort of fertilizers, right conditions and everything like that is likely to be a lot tastier than your store-bought tomato. And the reason why that could be is that when you grow it at home, you'll often let it ripen out on the bush and pick it just as it ripens, whereas in the stores, they might be growing it in Queensland or New South Wales, and they might pick it before it's ripe, ripen it artificially so that it's not rotting on the way to the store. And so that with that tomato ripening in a box or ripening in some cool room somewhere, it's not going to ripen up the way it might in the sun. So the ripening process is going to be much better with a homegrown tomato. And then if you use good quality soils and good quality potting mixes and possibly some organic fertilizers, but even just having the pH right and having everything right, it's likely, and that combined with having it picked at just the right time, which is what you can do when you're just picking a couple of tomatoes for yourself, that can result in having 2 or 3 times the flavour, much better texture, much better tomatoes. And not only that, you can go down to your nursery, and we're going to talk about all the varieties soon, but you can choose just the right variety for your property and for your situation and get that perfect tomato, feed it right, pick it at the right time, and you're going to really enjoy your tomatoes. Like sometimes I'll buy a tomato in the store and put it into a salad, and I just got this sort of tasteless, cold sort of lump in there, and I wonder why I bothered, you know. And my mum is a really real gourmet, and she reckons in the winter you shouldn't even buy tomatoes. So you know, like, so getting flavour, saving some money, getting some beautiful flavour, and perhaps a bit more healthier product could be well worth your while. And then tomatoes, I mean, they're great. With tomatoes, you can cook them up for breakfast with your eggs. You can make relishes out of them. You can make sauces out of them. You know, make your own pizza thing. I remember when I was a kid, my dad used to like to do everything big, and he would plant a row of tomatoes, and some years he'd plant 2 rows of tomatoes, 50 metres long. So we'd have a 50-metre row of tomatoes, and there was only like a family of 5, and he'd have this 50-metre row of tomatoes, and my mum would be up half the night cooking various sauces and all these different things, preserving tomatoes. We'd be having tomatoes for breakfast, lunch and dinner, and there'd still be piles of tomatoes piling up as they fell off the bushes in the field. And so I mean, tomatoes can be real handy, and they have lots and lots of uses. You know, your sauces and all different cultures have all different things they can do with them. So if you grow heaps of tomatoes in the summer, you can make yourself some relish, you can freeze away a bit of sauce, there's lots of things you can do to have tomatoes saving you money throughout the whole year and giving you that extra bit of flavour that you get from a homegrown tomato. So let's talk about how you're going to grow tomatoes. Now, the first thing is you've got a choice. The choice is big pots or garden beds. Now, when I say a big pot, the absolute smallest pot that you would grow a tomato in, and that might be a cherry tomato, would be a 12 or 13-inch pot, and preferably you'd use a 16-inch pot, and you'd use really good quality potting mix. We have one here called Nature Soil, which is not too expensive, and I think it's probably the best potting mix commercially on the market. So you wouldn't want to get one of them real cheap mixes because it's probably not going to really work. But a good quality potting mix, you know, and a nice big pot would be a starting point. And you might even mix a bit of extra lime in there, and a bit of, and there, you just cannot beat, for growing tomatoes or growing anything, you can't beat a bit of homegrown compost. And those of you, and the best compost comes from your kitchen scraps, and those of you that haven't got compost heaps should really consider a compost heap. It'll help you grow things like tomatoes and other vegetables and things like that better than anything else. So a bit of compost mixed in with some top quality potting mix, and maybe a little bit of limestone, crushed lime, dolomite lime, something like that, is going to set you up to grow tomatoes in pots. And there's a big advantage for growing tomatoes in pots. Like the downside is you'll have to water them more often than if they're in the garden. But the upside is that in the real heat of summer, tomatoes are going to benefit from a little bit of shade or a little bit of afternoon shade. Basically, tomatoes go backwards when it goes over 30 degrees. So a person in Melbourne or sort of in the coastal parts of Victoria is going to be able to grow tomatoes beautifully fully out in the open and in the sun. But my partner and I recently bought ourselves a place in the Goulburn Valley, and the old chap who we bought it from, he had a tomato house, and we've found that absolutely. We've had it in the place for a couple of years now. We've found that absolutely fabulous for ripening tomatoes. And what it does is in the Goulburn Valley, you get hot day after hot day after hot day, which can actually wreck the tomato that's out in the sun. And so a little bit of shade or a little bit of coolness in the real heat of summer, and so with your potted tomato you can move it into the shade a little bit when there's a giant heat wave. That's one advantage with the potted one, but then the disadvantage is you'll have to water it more often than you would. And one thing you can do is you can do a saucer which holds water under your pot. We have them here for really big size pots, plastic saucers. If you put a saucer under it, that will lower the amount of watering and give it water all day, every day, exactly when it needs it. Now, if you're growing them in the garden, and wherever you're growing them, what you want is airflow. So you want it to be a spot where, that's a bit open, got a bit of wind moving through it. So you want airflow and you want sunshine, and you want as much sun as you can get all day, particularly at this time of the year. So choose a spot like that, then dig it over, mix in some compost. A pH test wouldn't go astray, but if you can't be bothered with a pH test, just a bit of nice dolomite lime mixed in as well with a bit of compost. Even perhaps if it's heavy clay, you might even use a bit of potting mix, a bit of good quality potting mix mixed through. Basically, your tomato likes to have a kind of a neutral pH. It likes nice loose soil, good drainage, nice and rich, plenty of fertiliser, and you can use an artificial fertiliser. Osmocote's great for tomatoes. You can use things like Charlie Carp. There's lots of organic things that you can use, and organic stuff is good. I think it's going to improve the flavour of your tomato. And your homemade compost, whether you're growing it in a pot or growing it in the garden, is fabulous. But open, hot and sunny, and then if you're in an inland area like the Goulburn Valley, you might set up something or plan to set up something so that when you get in a crazy heat waves in the middle of summer, you can get a little bit of shade over the top of your tomatoes and have them producing right through the crazy heat. Our tomatoes produce beautifully with a little bit of shade, in those really hot times. So basically, growing tomatoes, what you want is you want loose soil. You pot or garden bed. It's loose, it's fertile, it's nice and sunny. In a very, very hot region, a capacity for a little bit of shade. I reckon in Melbourne you don't really need shade because you only seem to get 4 or 5 hot days in a row in one heat wave a year, and the rest of the time it's not that hot. So that's and another idea is that when do you plant your tomatoes? It's when your last frost occurs. So if you're say you're up in Mount Macedon or up in those higher regions in Victoria, you may not have even had your last frost yet, and it might be a couple of weeks away. And another thing is because tomatoes love warmth, and if you're in a cooler area, you might even make a bed in the garden and cover that bed with plastic, and you can cut a hole and plant your tomato in the plastic, and you can do that even a week or 2 or 3 before you plant, and you can warm that soil up because tomatoes love warm soil. So in cooler regions, a bit of plastic, or if you're a bit of a fanatic and you want to get that tomato going real early, warm up the bed. Like a raised bed is warmer than a flat garden, so a raised bed is going to help warm it, and then a raised bed covered in plastic is going to warm it a whole lot more. And black plastic is good because it blocks out the weeds, and clear plastic will tend to encourage weeds underneath. So black plastic is probably the best. So that can be a nice little trick to help you get your tomatoes going.
So would you say like October is kind of a good month to be looking at planting tomatoes, or?
I think right now.
Right now.
Right
okay.
now, you things are warming up. it depends. It depends where you are. Like say where we've got a place up in the Goulburn Valley. Planting tomatoes now is fine. The frosts are over. The weather's warmer. You've got the odd sort of 8-9 degrees of a night, but but if I was sort of like up at Lancefield, for instance, I'd be nervous planting tomatoes now.
Yeah.
So you might, and October could be the time if you were saying a place like Lancefield or Romsey or somewhere like that. But in the warmer regions, most of the warmer regions, you could be planting your tomatoes right now.
Yeah.
And the other thing is that if you're a person who likes to grow them from seed, you probably should have planted them weeks ago in the bed. But right now the nurseries have all got tomatoes that are several months old and well on the way to producing. So now's a great time to get down to your nursery and get those nice big tomato plants and get on the way to getting your tomatoes.
Perfect. And that applies for pots and garden beds?
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, and pots, in pots, I mean, if you're in a one of those difficult areas with unseasonal spring frost, that's where the pots come in handy. You could put them in the shed overnight on that night that they're predicting a frost, because there's some areas in Victoria where you can get a frost right up until mid-November. And in that sort of area, you could rush out of a night and grab that tomato and bring him inside.
Yeah. We do have another tomato question here. Just for anyone asking unrelated tomato questions, we're going to dedicate some time at the end to answer them. But just in wanting to keep consistent with what we're chatting about today, I'm just going to be at the moment asking the tomato questions, but don't worry, we'll get to you at the end. So there's a question of, is it true you can grow tomatoes in just pure perlite and horse urea?
Yes, you can, but you're not going to get I don't think you're going to get the flavours. Like tomatoes will grow anywhere in almost anything. They're a plant that really wants to grow, but you could do that, but you wouldn't have the nutrients or the biological life in there that would make a really great tomato. But people who grow, commercial growers that grow them hydroponically, grow them in perlite or grow them in a sort of a wood wall, but then what they do is that they run a very balanced, scientifically worked out range of chemicals through in the water, and the tomatoes then extract that from the water. But the organic people would still say that wasn't ideal, that what can happen is in a nice fertile soil mix, the organisms release things that don't get released by chemical companies.
Okay.
Yeah, and also I was just going to say, we don't want any sneaky questions like where they're talking about their weeping cherry and mentioning that it might have a tomato on it. So so no sneaky non-tomato questions.
Yeah, exactly. Do tomato growing strategies work for the whole nightshade family?
Pretty much, yeah.
Cool. And do they need to be staked?
Yes. Your cherry ones and your smaller growing ones less so, but yes, tomatoes need to be staked or they tend to sprawl all over the place, and you'll get fruit rotting on the ground. And also by staking them and getting them up and having the air, I was saying earlier you need a bit of airflow. By having them up a bit and getting the airflow through them, you're going to have less disease and healthier fruit.
Yeah. And should we pick tomatoes before they turn red? Mine always become overripe on the vine.
I think if you want maximum flavour, you want them turning red, and just at that point where they start to soften a bit, and then you really got great taste.
Great. All right, let's keep going with the live.
Okay, so we've talked about why you should be growing tomatoes, how to grow tomatoes, and then what I thought I would do now is tantalize you with some of the fabulous tomato choices available. When I was a kid, there was only like sort of 1 or 2 types of tomatoes that you could get, but now there's lots and lots of tomatoes, and so you can go into your nursery and you could get one of this one and one of that one and have 3 or 4 or 5 tomato plants serving various different purposes and desires, and make tomato growing a bit more fun than what it used to be. So what we'll do is we'll start off with our exotic and gourmet tomatoes, and this is the first one here, and this is a green and black tomato. That's it there, green and black tomato. And your green and black tomato, It's an heirloom tomato, and we probably owe a lot to, I could give Clive Blazy a mention. Clive Blazy from Diggers Seeds, actually back when the big chemical companies were trying to wipe out all of the varieties that people had cultivated for hundreds of years, he worked with the various different people all over the world and gathered tomatoes like this one here and preserved them and grew them on his seed farm, and now they're popular. But it was really Clive Blazy and Diggers Seeds that actually saved a lot of these fabulous old varieties of tomatoes and has given us the wonderful tomatoes that we have in restaurants and salads and things now. And this is an heirloom tomato, it's an old variety that's sort of one of those ones that they've saved, yeah, so it's an old one and it's an interesting one. So black and green, and then we've got a Tigerella, and Tigerella has sort of interesting tiger stripes on it, and it's and this has abundant yields, and it crops nice and early. So if you're in a hurry to get tomatoes, Tigerella will give you nice, interesting stripes, beautifully flavoured fruit, and it's going to crop a little bit early. Then we've got a yellow cherry. Now, if you want to wow your friends with a beautiful coloured salad and tasty, sweet little cherry tomatoes. Now, one of the great things about cherry tomatoes is that they're the first to ripen. So I reckon this one here could be producing fruit perhaps 6 or 8 weeks from now. So a cherry tomato, even if you're not super into cherry tomatoes, will get you self-sufficient for tomatoes much sooner than any other tomato. Then we've got a beautiful thing here. This is called Mellow Yellow, and it's not a magic mushroom. It's a tomato, and what it is, it's a beautiful one that's fairly sweet, and it's not acidic. So if you don't like acidic tomatoes, you might really go for a Mellow Yellow. So that's our range of kind of really exotic tomatoes. Then next of all, we've got these are good cooking ones. If you're a person who wants to do relishes, you want to do sauces, you want to freeze some tomatoes, you want high production, good flavour, and great cooking tomatoes, here's a range of them. This one is called Principe Borghese, and this is a one from southern Europe, and it's one of those ones that have been one of those old varieties that have been saved. Beautiful flavour.
Also, don't stress if you're not quite catching the names and don't know how to spell it. We'll have an article coming out on this in about 2 weeks, depending on our article schedule. So don't stress about trying to write this all down. Yeah. Just check our website in like about 2 weeks.
Yeah. And so this one here, great flavour, high yield, great for cooking and making sauces and things. Then we've got your cherry Roma, which is a kind of a modern thing. That your Roma is your great cooking tomato, your great sauce tomato. It's the one that the Italians and Greeks and that buy vast amounts of to make their sauces of in autumn. But this one here is a cherry Roma. So this one here is going to be producing sooner than your normal Roma. So it's basically a small Roma that's going to be in the game a lot, going to get you in the game a lot quicker. Still high yield, great flavour. Then here we've got San Marzano. Now San Marzano, great heavy producer, good flavour, and a great one for making your sauces and cooking, etc. And then of course here's your classic Roma tomato. And this is the one that a lot of Italians that love to get for their sauces. They buy them by the truckload around here in the around close to here in the autumn or late summer. And so Roma tomato, can't go wrong with this if you're into making some pizzas type sauces or something like that, or something for pasta. Now we're going to talk about your classic big beef steak, your big tomatoes, the ones that you chop up, make a great salad. They're good. You can cook with them. You make sauces, fry them up with an egg for breakfast. Really, really good. And the old classic is Gross Lis, and Gross Lis, lovely big tomato, heavy producer, great flavour. And what you can do, say you planted yourself some cherry tomatoes, you can then follow up and get some tomatoes sooner, and then you can use ones like these gross lists to have your salads and your cooking and everything later on. Then we've got our classic beefsteak tomato, and your beefsteak tomato is sort of like a giant red pumpkin-shaped tomato. Great flavour, good all-rounder, so salad, cooking, whatever you want, really, really good. And these tomatoes with these big fruit are ones that you really, if you don't stake, you're going to be in terrible trouble. Now this one here is your Oxheart tomato. Now your Oxheart tomato, heavy producer, great flavour, beautiful big tomato, good all-rounder. And then a lot of people worried about high interest rates and that mortgage. This one here is so productive, it can actually lower your mortgage. You'd have to grow a few of them.
Scientifically proven too.
Yeah, you'd have to grow a few of them to lower your mortgage.
And then sell them in a tomato stand.
Yeah,
like
and then you'd have to eat quite a few. But this one here is called a mortgage lifter, and it's a large, nice flavoured, heavy producer.
All right, I'll ask, there's two questions here that are quite similar to one another. So one of them is, what is the best companion plant that will keep the rats away from the tomatoes?
Gee, I don't know. But we sell Society garlic, and that's got quite a bit of flavour to it, quite a bit of smell, and I reckon some of that might be the go.
Cool.
Yeah.
And then also, is it worth planting with companion plants in a small veggie garden?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, and the other thing, to help keep the rats away, stake them well so that they're not on the ground and too accessible to the rats.
Or get a dog. Dog will keep them away.
Yeah.
All right, great. I think that's all the tomato questions for now. Keep going.
Yeah. Now the next type we're going to discuss is if you're in a cool climate. So if you're in a cool climate, I've already mentioned this one here. This is a good one for cooking and sauces, nice big fruit. And this is your Rouge de Marmande. And that one it's been developed in France over many, many years, and it's good for your cooler climates. But it's a good cooking, it's good for sauces and cooking and preserving and things like that. Good heavy producer. But if you're in a bit of a cool climate, you're worried about getting going with some tomatoes, use this one here. And then we've got Apollo. I believe this was the tomato that they ate on the moonshot.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And so Apollo is a bred for early. So it's bred for early maturing, high quality and firm and well flavored fruit, and for moonshots. So that's your Apollo tomato. And then direct from Russia, I believe Putin loves this particular tomato. This is a red Russian, and he loves red and he loves Russian. So, so your red Russian tomato, Putin's favourite, and basically in Russia you've got a short season. It tends to be a bit on the cool side in the early part of it, and so there you are. So this one here, great for a cool climate. Probably great if you're a little bit left too. Red Russian. So that's our range of tomatoes, and all of these tomatoes we've actually got available, ready to go in good big sizes, so that you could be producing tomatoes nice and early. And but next year, if you get in, tomatoes are easy to grow from seed, and if you get in nice and early, you might grow them just on the kitchen windowsill. They're very, very easy to grow, and you can get them going yourself from seed. Don't be afraid. And if you get ones like the heirloom varieties, they've been designed for hundreds of years to grow from seed. The people used to grow them, pick the best one, collect the seed, they'd be next year's tomatoes. So if you grow heirloom type tomatoes, you can then start to collect. So things like that French one, your Red Russian, they have an heirloom background, and you can collect the seed from those and grow them every year. And if you say you bought the Red Russian, even if you're not a little bit left, you might really enjoy it, and then you can collect the seed, grow it again next year, and be helping to preserve that variety of tomato.
Great.
So, any more questions on tomatoes?
Yeah, if you have any questions, comment them. I'm going to scroll up and I'm going to answer the questions that were unrelated to tomatoes. And if you have any questions about tomatoes, comment them and I will get to them. So first off, I'll just answer this one. We're located in Victoria, in Campbellfield. Then we got a question from Harry. When is the right time to plant turmeric?
Turmeric?
Yeah.
I don't know. What we'll do is we'll look that up and we'll come back to you. I'd say that it's going to be fairly warm conditions. I'd say probably early November. But we'll check that out.
Cool. And then do you have tips for, they've just transplanted some grass trees into their garden. Okay,
grass trees can be very tricky. Basically, with a grass tree, it needs fabulous drainage. They grow in very low fertility soils. So I often use secondhand potting mix. It's got no good in it at all. And use a tiny bit of lime and a little bit of, if you're using any fertilizer at all, it's just a small amount, and use a native Osmocote. So lime, native Osmocote, and if you're in Melbourne and most of Melbourne's clay, you would tend to mix in some light hungry soil and perhaps put a few boulders around it and then lift them up, so that you don't, with grass trees, you don't want them sitting down in clay where they're going to have water build up around them and get wet feet. They hate it. So it's good to know what grass trees hate. Grass trees, and one of the things about grass trees is they don't produce tomatoes, I've noticed. So
I'd be surprised if they started.
Not quite a tomato related question, but anyway, the thing that they like fabulous drainage. They like low fertility soils. They like a little bit of lime, just a little bit, and they like native Osmocote in very, very small doses. And they do like to be watered. Like a lot of the places where they grow will be, reasonably high rainfall. They like to be watered, but they like to be watered in well-drained conditions, so the water comes in and goes away.
Awesome. Also for turmeric, Google tells us September or October into a warm soil. So yeah.
So and Melbourne would probably be more of a November, because that's about how long it takes us to get really nice warm soil.
Yeah. I'm asking some unrelated tomato questions as well.
Oh, right, okay.
Don't worry. Do we have any Queensland bottle trees or dragon trees in stock?
No, but we get them in on a regular basis from our supplier, and we've got no problem supplying Queensland bottle trees in either small or large sizes.
Yep. And then we got a question. Are the roots of weeping lily pilly invasive? Will they be okay in a 40-centimetre garden bed? Yes
and no. Basically, if you let your weeping lily pillies can grow very big. Mm-hmm. But like for about the last 30 years, I've been driving past the weeping lily pilly hedge right near Albert Park Lake in front of a hotel there. And it's only about 1.6 metres tall, and they've been trimming it. It looks fabulous. They've been trimming it hard for 30 odd years. And at any rate, something like that's not going to have a giant invasive root system. But if you were to let, there's weeping lily pillies when you go down Sydney Road that are about 6 metres tall, and they're going to have quite big roots. And so if you contain the size by trimming them regularly, if you contain the width of them, contain the height of them, sometimes I encourage my customers to bleach them, trim the bottom branches off them. So as you reduce the size of your weeping lily pilly and contain it, you reduce its amount of roots. But weeping lily pillies don't have anywhere near as, say, a dangerous root system, say, as a ficus.
Amazing. All right, well, I'm not seeing any other questions. If anyone does have anything come up, just comment it now. But while we wait for any last-minute questions, do you want to tell them about the live we're doing next week, Chris?
Not really.
You don't want to?
Not really. It's a surprise live.
Okay, well, Well, check out our socials and we'll post about what topic we're doing. It is very exciting. It's
And you'll find it very surprising.
well, it's most likely going to be based off one of our videos that went really viral. So we are excited to kind of delve more into that topic.
So if
Behind
you
that,
want a surprising and fabulous live next week, join me next week.
that is sure. We do know what our Monday live is. Do you want to tell them about our Monday Q&A lives?
Oh yeah, so on Monday is where you can ring up and you can ask me anything, anything at all, and we discuss all aspects of gardening and we help you out with whatever gardening problems you might have. So Monday, 12 o'clock on your favourite platform.
Yeah, exactly. I'm only going to take tomato questions right now. Any other unrelated ones, save that for Monday. That's where we answer any and all questions. And then on these lives, we do try and just do the more related ones, unless we have
Bill
the
there was
time.
asking why his weeping cherry doesn't have tomatoes.
What is it?
That's because it's a weeping cherry.
Well, it could be a weeping tomato. That'd be interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. I think we're
Actually,
gonna.
you know what? Just something really interesting. Tomatoes are in the same family as potatoes,
That's weird.
and that's weird. And what Luther Burbank, who is the greatest horticulturist and plant breeder of all time, his mission in life was to create a plant that could produce tomatoes and potatoes simultaneously.
Did he get it?
And he never really, he got it going, but never really got it working. But I believe in recent times, with modern tissue culture and genetics and things like that, that the potato producing tomato or tomato producing potato, we may not get a weeping cherry that produces tomatoes, but pretty soon you're going to be seeing, and probably you'll see it first at Hello Hello, you'll see a potato that produces tomatoes, or a tomato, but it's closely related, highly possible. It was 100 years ago that Luther Burbank started working on it, and I believe that it's not that far away.
That's insane.
Yeah.
All right, we have one last tomato question, then we're going to wrap up today. Which type of tomatoes produce the most in Sydney?
That's an interesting question. I reckon that you would go for a cherry tomato for maximum production, and something like your cherry Roma would be a fabulous tomato, because the Romas are a great producer and cherries are fabulous producers.
Yep, perfect. All right, well, thanks everyone for coming to our Tomato Live. We hope that you get started on your tomato growing journey soon and have a lot of luck there. And we will see you hopefully next Monday. Bye everyone.
In the morning sun